Well, good afternoon. Welcome to FishyFins channel. Today we're going to talk about All For Reef and salt. Salt is the baseline of everything that we start with. And if you're just starting into reefing and you're setting up your first tank, you wanted to use an all-in-one because it's easy. And you really have to, before you start dosing All For Reef or any all-in-one, and we're going to talk about All For Reef because that's what we're using in our test tank back here, you want to make sure your baseline, your salt content, is exactly where it is leveling out on your tank as it says on the supply bag that you get. And let me turn on my second display video. All For Reef, Tropic Marine has some wonderful products, and this is basically what we keep on the shelf. We use our All For Reef. We have a Lemmy NP plus NP. We have the A- K plus elements, trace elements. I use Phosphide. Reef Actif is used between water changes. Back-to balance is used on a daily basis. But I love their product. We use all their products, but the point is going to be here is that too much of a good thing, no matter how good it is, can be a bad thing. So we're going to talk about salts. We're going to talk about using salt as a good baseline when we get started. In this case, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see here. Tropic Marine's Pro Reef salt is really nice to use with All For Reef. Now, do you have to? No, you could use any salt you want. But again, we're looking to set up a beginning baseline that's going to be in line with the needs and the uptake and the absorption of our tank. So All For Reef as in Tropic Marine's Pro Salt is really nice to use together. The Pro Reef, the calcium level is 1450, their alkalinity is 8.5, and of course the magnesium is 1380. All that's very nice to get started in, and those lines starting out are perfect. So if you set up your tank, you use Tropic Marine's Pro Reef Salt, and you start doing water changes every week, right? So you've gone through the ugly stage, you're maintaining your water level, your auto top off is keeping that the evaporation and the amount of salinity in the water balance, everything is coming together nicely. Your ugly stage is passed, and now you started adding some frags. And again, when we're talking about these frags, looking at the video down here, we'll turn it back on, and we're gonna go ahead and pause it right here. I don't have a whole lot of frags in here. There's just not a lot of coral in there. So when you're looking at my tank here, this is our All For Reef test tank back here. Have a couple of fish in there. We have a couple of frags in there, but not enough to really justify a lot of absorption of calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity. So if I start to dose, and I did start to dose All For Reef according to what is said on the bucket, I was overdosing, because I don't need what is said on the bucket for my tank capacity. This is about 100 gallons with the sump down there in the display. So if I was dosing, and I was dosing according to 100 gallons, I was way overfeeding this tank. I mean, way overfeeding it. In fact, I brought my dosing for All For Reef after going off of All For Reef for 3 weeks and just doing water changes, and to get in line with that salt baseline again, I'm only dosing 1 milliliter a day. That's all I'm dosing right now. So along with my 10% water changes every week and 1 milliliter a day, I'm maintaining those numbers that you just saw in the Tropic Marine Pro Reef Salt. Let me go ahead and turn this video off. So in the Tropic Marine Pro Reef Salt down here, where is it? Here we are. In order to maintain these numbers, I just use the salt. And I did water changes every week. Every 10% or so was all I needed to, because there's not a lot of absorption. Now, as my frags took notice of that and began to start growing again, because everything kind of went into a stalemate. When you start overdosing and your equilibrium goes off, nothing grows. Didn't really do any damage. It wasn't too bad. My alkalinity got above 12. It was 12.9 at one point. However, it's come down now to 9.5 over 3.5 weeks or so of not using All For Reef and doing 10% water changes. So that change over a period of time was just nice. And I liked it. It worked out good. Now, the problem I have is I can't get Tropic Marine Pro Reef Salt in a smaller container. I can only get that gigantic 5-gallon bucket. You know, in a 100-gallon tank, using it just for water changes, by the time I use a whole bucket up, it starts going bad because moisture collects in the salt. It starts breaking down. You all know that if you have salt opened up for more than, say, 2 months, it's probably going to start degrading and you don't want to use it. My other option, of course, was going to something locally that I could get. So the only thing I could find was reef crystals. So when you go up here to reef crystals, you see their content of calcium is 490. It's very high. It's good to have. The alkalinity is 13. That's way higher than I like, but it's still safe to use, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. and their magnesium is 1440, which is beautiful, perfect numbers for me. Now the alkalinity, because I'm mixing it with RO water, the alkalinity adjusts down pretty good once I add it to the tank, and I've leveled off at about 9.5 to 10 with my weekly 10% water change. So my calcium has been between 4 and 450 using reef crystals in my water change. My alkalinity is leveled out about 9.5 to 10, and my magnesium stays over 1400. So that's been pretty solid for me. I was using Red Sea Blue Bucket, but the problem I had with it is their magnesium is so low that every week my magnesium would always bottom out and I had to add magnesium. So I wanted a good baseline salt that stayed within the parameters that I'm comfortable with, because when I start using All For Reef again, it's going to maintain those parameters, and that's what we're going to shoot for. Now, I just wanted to do a big shout out to Seachem Reef Crystals. They use a product called, it's actually not Reef Crystals, it's Seachem Vibrant now. And their salt is fantastic. They're using something like 540 is the calcium level. This is what I tested in RO water. About 540, their alkalinity stays about 10. They say 10, I've been testing around 9.6 with RO water, and their magnesium is at 1400. So the problem with Seachem Vibrant is hard to find also. You just can't get it, but it's probably more in line with the numbers that I like, but I can't get it. So for now, I'm going to be using reef crystals until Tropic Marin's Pro Reef can come down into a smaller size so that I could get it and use it before it starts degrading in the container. So while we're using these numbers, what you want to do is really set up your tank, get your salt going, make sure your numbers every week when you do your water change are equal to what you see here. So if you're using Tropic Marin Pro Reef and you've got 450 calcium, 8.5 alkalinity, and 1380 magnesium, and you're right in that range, and you're doing water changes 10% a week, you have no need to start dosing. I mean, because the salt also has the trace elements in it, it has most of everything that you need in it. Now, if you need more trace elements, or you have a lot of inverts, and you have snails, you have shrimp, you have all kinds of stuff in there, crabs, you may want to start adding some trace elements. Now, All For Reef is not just the only product that they have in Tropic Marin. They have the A and K trace elements, which I like to use since I've just been using the salt. And it has the trace elements I need, especially for goniopora. I also supplement a little bit of manganese for my goniopora, only 1 drop a week, and it helps to maintain those levels because I'm just not using a lot of All For Reef. I'm only doing water changes using the salt that matches my needs. So one of the problems that, again, I saw everybody doing in All For Reef, and I've seen everybody going to the forums and talking about the people that need help, is why are my numbers going every place? I'm dosing what they say from my tank, but I'm not coming up with those numbers that they're saying on their website. And if you look at their website, I think their numbers call pretty much in line to what their salt says. So if you look at their salt here, this is what they're saying is a good average for their tanks. Is about 400, about 8.5, and about 1310. But if you look at this also, they have 2 ranges. Their Tropic Marin, their regular salt, and their Pro Reef salt is a little bit different in alkalinity, mostly. So it goes from 10 from their Tropic Marin to the Pro Reef to 8.5. However, when you look at Red Sea, they go from 7 and way up to their Pro Salt, 12.2. Tropic Marin goes down. Their basic is 10, and their Pro Reef goes down to 8.5. So you really want to make sure you're using the salt that meets your needs, that you feel comfortable with, and All For Reef, once you start using it, is going to maintain those levels along with your water change. Another thing to remember is that when you're doing your water change, you do a water test before you do your water change, and then the day after do another water test and find out if your numbers are staying in line with what it says on that bag of salt that you're using. If they're not, you may end up with a problem. So you want to make sure that your water changes, your salt being used first is all balanced, it's all nice and even. Your water changers are maintaining those numbers that it says on the bag of salt that you're using, and that not until the absorption rate goes up and those numbers come down do you want to start dosing All For Reef. And that goes for anything. If you're using the balling method, you're using the 3-part, the 2-part Seachem method, whatever it is, that you're using, Aquaphor, it goes on and on. There's 100,000 companies out there now. You really want to make sure that your salt itself is being depleted And the ions in your salt are being absorbed and used beyond your ability to do water changes and maintain them. Now, just a heads up, if you do a water change on an established tank every 3 days, say you have an auto water change system going, you may never need to add calcium or magnesium or alkalinity. So, water changes are everything, and the water change, the salt has everything in it. When you're doing water changes, you're removing all the bad stuff from the water. You're removing the nitrates, the phosphates, you're removing all the biomatter, everything, the particulates in the water that do damage that turn into ammonia byproducts. So those water changes are very important. And if you did water changes every 3 days, or you had an automatic water change system that's dumping a gallon or two and replacing it every day, you probably would never have to dose anything. And that's the absolute truth. We start dosing because either our uptake on the tank increases so much exponentially that the water changes can't keep up with it, or we just get tired of doing water changes. And if you have a bad back and your shoulder hurts and your legs hurt and you got to carry buckets of water around, eventually you stop doing water changes and you start relying on a dosing product to maintain these levels, and that's when you get in trouble. So just heads up on that. I've seen a lot of people make this mistake. When you start using All For Reef, and like anything else, you have to be careful. Too much of a good thing is not so good all the time. You may not need a skimmer for a while. A lot of people buy skimmers. They see all the hype in the Facebook groups and YouTube videos. And I need a Chaeto algae refugium. I need a skimmer. I need an algae scrubber. I need all this stuff. But the truth of the matter is all this stuff comes into play because we as reefers get lazy and we don't want to do water changes. And the fact of the matter is the skimmer, the refugium, all that takes the place of good husbandry, of doing water changes, cleaning the glass, cleaning out your filter system, your socks if that's what you're using, whatever it is. So, you don't really have to spend a lot of money. It does take a little bit of work. And if you're not careful and you do too much at once, you may end up with a problem. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Very important. When you're using All For Reef or you're using any product at all, the baseline is the salt. When you're doing water changes, you really don't have to dose anything until your water changes are no longer keeping up with the absorption of the tank. And you can increase your water changes. So you could do water changes twice a week, 3 times a week if you need to, and maintain whatever the numbers are on that bag of salt that you're using. And as soon as your water changes can no longer maintain those numbers because your absorption is that high, now it's time to maybe think about dosing. And before you buy a refugium and you buy skimmers, and if you're going to do anything, buy a skimmer and turn your skimmer way down or way up to increase or decrease the bio load, the absorption or the export of the biomedia in the tank, and rely more on the bio filtration in the system, the active biofilters, the nitrates in the system that are being absorbed by bacteria, healthy bacteria. So water changes are everything. Getting a baseline with salt is everything. And be careful when you start using any all-in-one, because if you do exactly what it says on the package and you don't do your research and get a good baseline, you may start overdosing and using too much of the product and do more damage than good. So I hope this helps you guys. It's a great product, Tropic Marin All For Reef. I love it. On this tank now, we added more frags to it since you saw that video. I've got some more coming right now from Tidal Garden, so they had their big Cyber Monday sale. So we bought some frags to throw in there. So what's going to happen, of course, is our absorption is going to increase. Our numbers are going to start decreasing before the water change, and we're going to start dosing more All For Reef. So we'll go from 1 milliliter a day, and that's how far down we came. I was dosing almost 12 milliliters according to what it said on the bucket of All For Reef. Big mistake. My tank was not absorbing enough to use all of that uptake. So I reduced it down to 1 milliliter a day after 3 weeks of using no All For Reef and just doing water changes every week until those numbers came within reason and my equilibrium all balanced out again. So now that my uptake and my absorption is starting to increase again as I load corals into the tank, I'm going to start dosing 2 milliliters a day of All For Reef. And after a week, I'll check my numbers. And if they're maintained, I'm going to save 2 milliliters and a 10% water change every week. There's going to come a point in time when those absorption numbers are going to increase and my ions are going to decrease. I'll go to 3 milliliters of All For Reef with a 10% water change. and my equilibrium will stay nice and level, my alkalinity will stay nice and level, my calcium, magnesium will stay within balance of each other. There's a tandem there that occurs between the three. So we'll make sure that everything is nice, easy, and remember, too much of a good thing, no matter how good it is, isn't always a good thing when it comes to reefing. So I hope this helps you out. And again, the Tropic Marin Pro Reef Salt is fantastic. If you can find it and get it, I certainly would. It's not easy to do right now. I can only find it in the big buckets. Oh, I wanted to show you this real quick while we have it. I got this from theaquariumsolution.com. And this is some of their paperwork that they send out with their equipment. And I got some stuff from them not so long ago, and this came in with it. And this shows you a balance between alkalinity and calcium and what it really should look like. So if you look at this right here, if your alkalinity is around, let's say 9, and that's, where is it? Here it is, 9. If your alkalinity is around 9, then your calcium should be about 425. And that's the balance that it usually maintains. And if you look at alkalinity dropping to 4.5, your balance should be, if you're really balanced and doing it right, around 393 in calcium. As your alkalinity goes up, your calcium goes up in perfect ratio with your alkalinity. So since I'm running somewhere around right now 9.5, my alkalinity should be 429. Guess what it is? It's 425. So using just the salt and my alkalinity being at 9.5, and now my calcium is 425, I'm where I should be. Have some balance there. So you can get these charts at their website. We have it, of course, in this video, and we have it at our website. If you go to FishyFins and Facebook, and you look at our page, if you click on where the files are, you could also get a PDF of this along with those salts, the chart with the salts. So you could kind of get an idea for yourself where you need to be with alkalinity, with calcium, where that balance is, and know where you should be before you start dosing any product, whether it's All For Reef, whether it's 3-in-1, whether it's the balling 3-part method, whether it's a Seachem 2-part method, whether it's Aquaforest, Tropic Fauna. I mean, everybody's got their own thing out there right now. So no matter what you're using, start with the salt. Make sure over a period of time your salts are maintaining all those levels. And until they start dropping off where your water changes aren't keeping up with those levels that the salt is advertising on the bag of salt, that's when it's time to start dosing. This is FishyFins. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I'm going to go back to this cool picture I like of all my Tropic Marin products. See you in your reef tanks.